I'm Mr. Beat, and I like to consider myself and a bit of a as well. I'm sorry to censor myself, but I don't want to ruin the surprise. There are 4 types of political groups that every single human being on the planet is a member of, whether they realize it or not. In this video, I'm gonna explain those 4 political groups. Hey punk, I thought I told you to start a country in Antarctica. I did. It's done. Marie Birdland. Beatlandia. Oh. Well, thank you. Why are you here? I'm here to ask you what a political group is. What's a political group? A political group is a group that forms in response to politics. What's politics again? How the power of government is distributed. More broadly speaking, how power is distributed between people, period. That's why I always loved the old quote, just because you don't take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you.
I don't care about politics.
I don't want to get political.
Well, let's not get into a political discussion here.
Let's not talk politics in the office, okay?
Okay, no more politics.
I don't want to talk about politics anymore.
Right.
The people who say, I don't want to make this political, are so cringe. Look, man, we can't escape politics. Politics is everywhere, and every day we are constantly affected by it. So anyway, I've noticed that throughout history, 4 groups tend to naturally form in response to politics. It's worth noting that this is something I've come up with on my own.
Good boy.
If you're a political scientist watching this and you're like, well, that just sounds like blah, blah, blah. Well, then please let me know in the comments about that. But also remember that I wrote this script not knowing anything about blah, blah, blah. So don't call me an idiot, please. All right, here are the 4 political groups. You're holding up 5 fingers. Thumb's not a finger. Conservatives generally seek to keep things the same. They seek to preserve what's good in the existing order. Now, that doesn't mean they aren't for some change, but conservatives want caution, slow evolution, incremental reform, not rapid revolution. Oh crap, am I starting to rap? They want caution, slow evolution, incremental reform, not rapid revolution. Conservatives tend to think, why change what isn't broken? They say proceed with caution because we just don't know what we might destroy. Conservatives tend to promote traditional values. What the heck does that mean? The rule of existing laws. Prioritizing stability, safety, faith, family, a more limited government, the preservation of established institutions, stuff like that. Now, being a conservative isn't all biscuits and gravy. Their stubbornness to change can cause them to constantly be searching for allies to help them double down. They tend to favor whatever benefits the status quo, even if that means tens of millions of people are left behind. Often, conservatives tend to have the mindset that we don't need to help more people. People are doing just fine. Often, conservatives are financially stable themselves. Overall, though, they tend to focus on the present. A present anchored by the past. Reformers generally seek to change things for the better. They believe the existing system might be fundamentally sound, but it still requires, significant updates, you could say. They aren't looking to burn the house down. They just think the plumbing is backed up and the roof needs shingles. Know what I'm saying? Of all the political groups, reformers tend to question things the most. Reformers tend to value empathy, inclusion, justice, equality, and innovation. Reformers tend to trust human reason and experts. And they aren't afraid to change existing institutions, and they ain't afraid to use government to make changes. They tend to be pretty passionate about helping the marginalized, and they generally tend to be open to new ideas. That all said, reformers recognize that pain for some is needed to help more people. But overall, yep, reformers believe that more people need help. Just like conservatives, reformers are often usually financially stable themselves. Now, being a reformer ain't all macaroni and cheese. Their openness to new ideas can lead them to underestimate trade-offs, human nature's limits, the value of inherited wisdom, and unintended consequences. Sometimes they mistakenly dismiss tradition as nothing more than oppression. Not only that, reformers often have a hard time actually getting stuff done. They tend to quickly create purity tests and are constantly looking out for traitors to the movement because questioning things is what made them reformers to begin with. Overall, though, reformers tend to focus on the future. How can we make life better for those who aren't around yet? Well, reactionaries react. They generally want change by tearing down and destroying everything. Reactionaries are often the most misunderstood group. Often folks lump them in with conservatives or say they are extreme traditionalists. But they are definitely not conservative, and in some cases, they couldn't care less about tradition. Like children, reactionaries let only their emotions guide their political perspectives, especially fear and anger. For the typical reactionary, it's about feelings, not facts. Reactionaries often have nothing to lose and everyone to blame. This is the easiest way to spot a reactionary. They are often quick to scapegoat specific groups: immigrants, transgender folks, billionaires, the media. Reactionaries tend to think we need to burn everything down and start over from scratch. They are perfectly okay with hurting a lot of people in order to do so, especially those aforementioned scapegoats. In fact, they would argue that they need to hurt people in order to fix the political order. Okay, so far I have made reactionaries look pretty bad. So let me defend them a bit. Reactionaries are often financially struggling and only want to destroy the entire system because the system has not worked for them. Like, at all. Most are not inherently bad people. They are just desperate and often have been screwed over for generations. They want reform, but don't see reformers as allies because reformers tend to be privileged and still want to keep the current system and even still often benefit from the current system. Overall, though, reactionaries look to a distant, often made-up past, and they often have no hope for the future. Using a video game reference here for the youth, but non-player characters, or NPCs, aren't paying attention to politics. NPCs seemingly lack a personal political compass. They uncritically absorb and repeat the dominant narratives and social cues of their environment. In other words, they go along with the majority without any independent analysis or skepticism. They're background characters following a script. True followers: sheep. Sure, they'll go along with change. Change can happen as long as there's no pain to get there. Like conservatives and reformers, NPCs also benefit from the status quo, but they just don't care how or why. In their defense, NPCs often have no idea that they are NPCs. And often modern society offers so much work and distractions that of course they wouldn't figure out that they are NPCs. And I should stress, they are not NPCs when it comes to everything. Some of the most intelligent, inspirational, and dynamic people in the world are NPCs. They're just NPCs when it comes to politics. Overall, NPCs are only focused on the immediate present. Cogs in the machine, but don't know. Stuck in each moment with no desire to get out of it. So, to refresh, reformers tend to push forward toward a utopian vision. Reactionaries tend to push backward toward an imagined golden age. Conservatives try to stay grounded in the workable past and present without radical lurches either way. NPCs are just along for the ride. I like to think of myself as a reformer, but at times I feel more like a conservative. And stop it with the stupid left-wing, right-wing crap. It's time to admit that the old left-wing, right-wing political spectrum isn't that accurate. I made a whole video about why that is, by the way. The fact is, there are not only people who self-identify as right-wing who are actually reactionary, there are people who self-identify as left-wing who are also reactionary. Presenting my political group diagram. NPCs here to represent where the center of politics is. Reformers up here to represent where politics is going. Conservatives over here to represent where politics is staying. Reactionaries down here to drag everyone down to, you know. To be clear, we need all four groups. The healthiest societies probably need constant tension between all four groups, especially reformers and conservatives. And yes, we even need reactionaries, as they remind us what happens if we completely give in to our most destructive emotions. As long as they stay out of power. Conservatives, it works. Keep it. Reformers, it's okay. Improve it. Reactionaries, fear, loathing, and resentment. NPC, shoulder shrug emoji. Now, you may be wondering, why did I draw the diagram up like this? First of all, why are there so many NPCs? Well, according to a recent Gallup poll, more than 2/3 of Americans don't follow politics that closely. So that's like more than 66% of the population. But the number of people in each political group is constantly changing. Whoa. When things are generally going well, the NPC group tends to grow and the other three groups tend to shrink. However, when things are not going so well, the NPC group tends to shrink and the reformer and reactionary groups, aka the change groups, tend to get bigger, especially the reactionaries group. When NPCs become politically activated, sad to say, they often begin by becoming reactionaries, as it's usually economic despair and disillusionment with the whole system that leads them to become politically active to begin with. And that's what we're seeing right now. Reactionaries have become such a big group that they are now a major political force, even taking over many powerful governments around the world. Now, most republics are pretty good at preventing reactionaries from taking power, but some do slip into leadership, and when that happens, well, terrible, terrible things can happen. I believe so many people are worried about the world right now because so many reactionaries have gained power when they're often the least qualified to hold such power. In my opinion, all three of the other political groups, reformers, conservatives, and yeah, NPCs, have to unite against reactionaries if we want our species to survive. I know. Easier said than done. Reformers often look at conservatives as obstacles to progress. Conservatives often look at reformers as naive, reckless, and overly idealistic. Both reformers and conservatives often look at the NPC as the swing vote that is easily convinced by the loudest voice. All of them tend to put the reactionaries into the basket of deplorables.
Basket of deplorables.
But have some empathy for reactionaries. Their feelings are real. Their suffering is real. And they deserve to be happy. And yes, even some reactionaries can be reachable. Many reactionaries end up becoming conservatives and reformers. And yep, even NPCs, if things get better enough. So, at least for now, I'm calling for all reformers and conservatives to put aside their differences to not only fight back against reactionaries, but also recruit NPCs to help them fight back against reactionaries. And after we fight them, we help them. Aww. So that reactionaries never take over the world again. So how about you? What political group do you think you are a part of? Did I get my political groups correct? Do you think my 4 political groups are crap? Huh? Well, they could be crap. I kind of just made them up. I presented to you in this video a, how do you say, hypothesis? Political scientists, feel free to put me in my place in the comments below. Thank you for staying curious.